أنا تحققت وقعته
لترشيح لعماد ميشيل عون.
المعارضة السورية هي بتحدد من يمثلها.
Good afternoon. You're watching the English newscast on Future Television. I'm Yumna Naufal, and these are today's top stories. Dozens of protesters converge in Beirut's downtown as part of a planned rally to denounce the prolonged waste crisis and the ambiguous cabinet plan to export it. Hezbollah official Hussein Khalil says that the party's lawmakers will only attend the parliament session aimed at electing a president next week if an agreement is reached to elect its candidate, MP Michel Aoun. And hundreds of Syrians mass at the Syria-Turkish border, desperate to go onto safer grounds as Syria faces an intensifying Russian assault around the city of Aleppo. Good afternoon to all our viewers tuning in. We begin today with Riyadh al-Sulh. Dozens of protesters converged in Beirut's downtown as part of a planned rally to denounce the prolonged waste crisis and the ambiguous cabinet plan to export the garbage. One of the protesters was quoted saying, "We are here simply to urge the cabinet to assume its responsibilities and resolve the waste crisis. We are demanding the collection of garbage from the streets and a sustainable solution." Around 100 protesters responded to the rally call, which began at 10 o'clock a.m. this morning. Holding umbrellas and challenging the bad weather, demonstrators chanted slogans against the state and its failure to tackle the crisis. 2 hours into the rally, several activists removed an iron barricade perimeter, separating them from riot police who had deployed in the area. Another demonstrator accused politicians of striking deals underneath the table to divide shares from the transportation plan, saying the secretive manner in which the cabinet chose the waste export firms has been ambiguous. The Lebanese army needs to be better equipped in order to triumph in its battle against militants along its eastern border, according to Defense Minister Samir Muqbil. He was quoted saying, "We need ammunition, as the army cannot lack ammo when it is asked to fight terrorism and control the border." He said this after meeting with Prime Minister Tamam Salam at the Grand Sarai. He underscored that the state cannot ignore the needs of the army when there are 8,000 soldiers deployed along the border from the northeastern border town of Arsail to the village of Ras Baalbak in tough weather conditions and temperatures below 0 degrees. Muqbil voiced an understanding and a will to cooperate expressed by Salam and Speaker Nabih Berri, whom he met on Friday, regarding the importance of supporting the military with the required equipment and ammunition. Lebanon has not passed a public budget bill since 2005 regarding this issue. Instead, the cabinet has annually approved spending without approval from parliament. Hezbollah official Hussein Khalil says the party's lawmakers will only attend the parliament session aimed at electing a president next week if an agreement is reached to elect its candidate, the founder of the Free Patriotic Movement, MP Michel Aoun, to the top post. When an agreement is reached on the election of General Aoun as president, Hussein was said, then we will be the first to arrive at the parliament and elect him. Khalil says this after meeting with Aoun. The Hezbollah delegation visited the Change and Reform bloc head, marking 10 years since the party and the FPM signed their famous Memorandum of Understanding. The visit comes as the battle for the top state post heats up ahead of a parliament session next week aimed at filling the 20-month-old vacuum. Hundreds of Syrians are massing at the Syrian-Turkish border, desperate to go into safer grounds. Syrians are feeling an intensifying Russian assault around the city of Aleppo, and aid workers are saying that the city could soon fall under a full government siege. Turkish Prime Minister Ahmed Davutoglu has said 15,000 people fleeing Aleppo had arrived at Turkey's border, but some media reports put the number significantly higher. At a makeshift camp set up near a border crossing, families are crying for help. Russia's intervention with airstrikes to help longtime ally Syrian President Bashar al-Assad has tipped the war in Damascus's favor, reversing gains rebels made last year. Turkey, which has taken in more than 2.5 million refugees fleeing the Syrian war, wants Assad out and says only his removal can bring long-term peace. And inside Syria, more than 120 members of the Syrian regime forces and rebels were killed in heavy fighting for a town north of Aleppo city. according to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. The Britain-based monitor said rebels had regained control of more than half of the town of Ratian in the fierce clashes, leaving about 60 opposition fighters and 60 regime forces dead. This comes as Syria's government warned Saturday that its forces would resist any foreign ground intervention after reports that Saudi Arabia and Turkey, which both support rebel forces, could send in troops. Any ground intervention on Syrian territory without government authorization would amount to an aggression that must be resisted. Those are the words of Foreign Minister Walid Ma'alem at a news conference in Damascus. So following up on that story, with rebel forces facing the prospect of a crushing defeat by Syria's Russian-backed regime, their allies Saudi Arabia and Turkey may send in limited numbers of ground troops, according to analysts. Riyadh on Thursday left open the possibility of deploying soldiers, saying it would contribute positively if the U.S.-led coalition against the Islamic Jihadist State group in Syria decides on ground action. The fate of the Saudi-backed Syrian armed opposition groups fighting to topple President Assad is also a major concern for the kingdom. I think Saudi Arabia is desperate to do something in Syria, said Andreas Craig of the Department of Defense Studies at King's College in London. Craig said the moderate opposition is in danger of being routed if Aleppo falls to the regime whose forces have closed in on Syria's second city, backed by intense Russian airstrike. Aleppo is the main stronghold of Syria's armed opposition, which is facing possibly its worst moment since the beginning of the nearly 5-year war at a time when peace efforts have stalled. And Kayum up next, drone footage shows scenes of destruction at the site of a 17-story apartment block toppled by an earthquake in Taiwan. Stay with us, we'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching the 16:20 o'clock news here on Future Television. Drone footage showed scenes of destruction at the site of a 17-story apartment block toppled by a 6.4 magnitude earthquake in the southern city of Tainan in Taiwan. The powerful earthquake killed at least 7 people, including a 10-year-old girl, and triggered frantic efforts to rescue about 35 people feared trapped inside. The baby and 3 of the other dead were from an apartment complex where the floors of a tower block pancaked down onto each other when the 6.4 magnitude tremor hit around 4 a.m. local time at the start of the Lunar New Year holiday. Rescuers mounted hydraulic ladders and a crane to scour the wreckage, plucking 221 survivors to safety so far, with dozens taken to hospital. Elsewhere in the city of 2 million people, several buildings tilted at alarming angles, but a fire department official said rescue efforts were now focused entirely on the apartment block. Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton delivered back-to-back speeches in a stadium in New Hampshire packed with voters from both sides of their battle to win the Democratic nomination. 4 days before the crucial U.S. presidential primary in New Hampshire, on the way to the elections this November, thousands of supporters of both candidates converged on the stadium in snowy downtown Manchester, where the Democratic Party hosted a celebration touted as an evening with the next president. Here they are.
No president, not Bernie Sanders or anybody else, can bring about the changes that the middle class and working families of this country desperately need. And the reason for that is that the powers that be, Wall Street, corporate America, the corporate media, the Koch brothers, the large campaign donors, are so powerful that the only way we create the change that we need is through a political revolution. And with a very loud voice heard on Tuesday in New Hampshire and heard all over this country, the voice which says that this government of ours, fought and defended by so many men and women who prepared to put their lives on the line, this government of ours belongs to all of us, not a handful of wealthy campaign contributors. Thank you all very much.
You are choosing a commander-in-chief. And I know that sometimes foreign policy might seem a little remote. That's understandable with events taking place on the other side of the world. But things that happen overseas can directly impact your life, your job, and your family. Now, there's terrorism, obviously, but that's not all. Just in the past few weeks, We've seen problems in China sending stock markets here plummeting. That can affect your retirement savings. As we sit here tonight, North Korea is working on missiles that could reach the United States. We need a president who understands how to deal with that threat. As we sit here tonight, our troops are still in harm's way in Afghanistan. We need a president who can give them the support and the strategy they need. Russia, Iran, ISIS, these are not issues that we can put off to the side. They cannot be an afterthought. They have to be just as present on the desk in the Oval Office as all the other work we need to get done here at home. We Democrats face a big choice on Tuesday. And I want to take a minute right now to speak to all the young people who are here, whether they are supporting me or whether they are supporting Senator Sanders. Now, of course, I still hope to persuade those who are supporting Senator Sanders to give me another look, but I want you to know that I am truly glad that you are involved in this process and in the Democratic Party. You are bringing energy, ideas, and urgency to our shared causes.
U.S. President Barack Obama expressed confidence in the U.S. economy after the latest job reports showed the unemployment rate at an 8-year low of 4.9%, which he said was a sign of strength in the U.S. economy. The United States of America right now has the strongest, most durable economy in the world, Obama said, decrying Republican candidates in the race to replace him in the November 8th presidential election. Obama, in his 8th and final year in office, made his remarks during a relatively rare, unexpected appearance in the White House to speak about how the economy had recovered under his watch. Obama said softness in China, Europe, and other economies presented challenges to U.S. exporters, and he said it was important for the U.S. to keep their foot on the accelerator to further strengthen the economy. And on that note of the president, climate change was the main topic of his weekly address. Mr. Obama stated that he hailed the landmark climate accord reached in Paris last year as strong and historic, calling it the best chance to save the planet from the effects of global climate change. Obama has made combating global climate change a top priority of his presidency, but has encountered stiff resistance to his proposals from Republicans in Congress.
Hi, everybody. One of the things that makes America great is our passion for innovation, that spirit of discovery and entrepreneurship that helps us meet any challenge. One of the greatest challenges of our time is climate change. Over the last 7 years, we've made historic investments in clean energy that help private sector companies create tens of thousands of good jobs. And today, clean power from the wind or the sun is actually cheaper in many communities than dirtier conventional power. It's helped grow our economy and cut our total carbon pollution more than any other country on Earth. That leadership helped bring nearly 200 nations together in Paris around the most ambitious climate agreement in history. And in Paris, we also launched one of the most important partnerships ever assembled to accelerate this kind of clean energy innovation around the world. Investors and business leaders, including Bill Gates, Meg Whitman, and Mark Zuckerberg, joined us, pledging their own money to help advance new technologies to the market. That's important because we'll only meet this challenge if the private sector helps lead the way. As I said in my State of the Union address, rather than subsidize the past, we should invest in the future. That's why the budget I'll send to Congress this Tuesday will double funding for clean energy research and development by 2020. This will include new investments to help the private sector create more jobs faster, lower the cost of clean energy faster, and help clean, renewable power outcompete dirty fuels in every state. And while Republicans in Congress are still considering their position on climate change, many of them realize that clean energy is an incredible source of good-paying jobs for their constituents. That's why we were able to boost clean energy research and development in last year's budget agreement. And I hope they support my plan to double that kind of investment.
Marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our headlines. Dozens of protesters converged in Beirut's downtown as part of a planned rally to denounce the prolonged waste crisis and the ambiguous cabinet plan to export it. Hezbollah official Hussein Khalil says the party's lawmakers will only attend parliament session next week if an agreement is reached to elect Michel Aoun. And hundreds of Syrians mass at the Syrian-Turkish border, desperate to go into safer grounds as Syria faces an intensifying assault around the city of Aleppo. Those are your Saturday headlines live on Future Television. Catch us again tomorrow for all the latest. Goodbye.
أنا أتحقق تدريب وتعطوني
لترشيح لعماد ميشيل عون.
المعارضة السورية هي اللي تحدد من يمثلها.